Hey everybody, my name is Kyle O'Connor. I'm a fiction writer. I've been doing that seriously for a little over 14 years, and like most writers, I started out as a big reader. Once I got into the chapter book level, I really got into Roald Dahl, like many people. Just absolutely loved his entire catalog, from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory to, the BFG and James and the Giant Peach. From there, I probably went to, Terry Pratchett, Discworld, Brian Jakes with Redwall, of course. I really love that one. And Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit, Harry Potter. I was absolutely fixated on sci-fi and fantasy. Really, those were the only genres that appealed to me at the time. And so I want to say I was in 10th grade when I first tried to write something. And it was, I think it was about giants of some kind, like a Tolkien style thing. And I wrote about 20 to 30 pages, single spaced, before I realized I hadn't written one word of dialogue. I stepped back and I realized, I don't really know anything about storytelling. I don't know anything about writing. So I didn't really try to write again until my first year in college. And that's when I started to work on what would be my first completed novel. And I definitely put a lot more time and attention into that as opposed to my schoolwork. But, that's another story. I mean, I was obsessed with writing, with fantasy, with sci-fi, and really, my initial urge to write when I was a little bit younger than that, it stemmed from wanting to give people the same feeling that all these authors that I love had given me with all of their books and series. And that's what pushed me to actually try to do it myself. So over the course of that first year of college was when I wrote and completed that first novel. And I had been doing some studying on how to write and all that. And so that definitely helped me. But like a lot of writers, I was ignorant and impatient. What's interesting is I think that really helped me, to be honest. If I knew how difficult the road would be, the journey of like from there to now, it's one of those things where it's, if you know how hard it's going to be, would you even do it? And so ignorance was bliss when it came to that. And I finished that first novel, and I just thought, let's do a once over, make sure there's no typos, and then I'll send it out, and pretty soon I'll have the book deal, and we'll get that series going and my career going, because really I knew that's what I wanted to do without question. All I could really think about was writing, and it had nothing more to do with the fact that it's just what I enjoyed the most. It's what I wanted to do with my time. And, pretty quickly, I was in store for some very difficult lessons that I think all writers really go through. And of course, I had to learn how to write a query letter, and that's a whole different ball game. I think anyone who's tried to write knows that. It's a different skill set, and it takes a while to master, just as it does to, the same for a novel or a short story or a script. With that first novel, I was eventually able to get, I think I got like one or two requests, maybe for partials, or I think one full, but that was after about 3 years of work of taking that novel from a really overwritten 100,000 words or so to about 70,000, and it was as good as I could have gotten it at the time. Like it's not one I would share right now, but it's as good as it could be at that time. I think a lot of aspiring authors fall into two camps. One is not being comfortable with sharing your work until you feel like you're ready, and then the others just are very comfortable sharing that and putting it out there. And really, it kind of goes against my nature, but I was actually in the latter, and I did feel comfortable sharing it. I remember putting some of it out on Facebook, and it's super cringeworthy. And looking back, it's embarrassing, but I think that was something that helped me, though, the fact that I was okay with putting that out there, and the fact that I was so ignorant about how good you actually had to be. So I spent about 3 full years on that first novel, between writing multiple drafts, revising, also studying writing and storytelling. And I did get it the best that it could possibly be. And of those couple of requests that I got from agents, of course, wasn't even close to good enough, really. And as I immersed myself more within the world of writing and creating fiction in whatever medium, I realized that most people's first novels are not that good. And you can spend a long time on it, but it's going to be flawed probably from the beginning. Mine definitely was. And I realized I had to write something else, and I came up with a new idea. And I went after it again. By putting myself out there, I was at least getting a little bit of feedback on if I was progressing at all or not. And I felt like I was, so I kept trying. And my second novel again was a young adult fantasy, just like the first one. And this one I had a lot more success. I got better at writing query letters. I understood the process more and targeting of literary agents. And my writing was better, storytelling was a little bit better, and I got much more requests on this one. I also went to a pitch conference in New York City, and I did really well with the pitch, but eventually I would come to find out that the writing wasn't good enough. It just flat out wasn't. The storytelling probably wasn't good enough, understanding structure and all that. So I was very excited. Again, like I mentioned before, I was a little bit impatient, and I didn't realize until looking back now that where my skills actually were to where I thought they were. I didn't think I was the greatest writer ever or anything that delusional, but I definitely thought I was better than I was, and I got a lot of requests from not only literary agents, but also some really good editors. And the fact that nothing materialized out of that, I finally came to understand that, I'm just not good enough at this yet. And if I was good enough, they would have wanted to, offer me a contract, and it would have gone further. And I think I eventually went through probably every literary agent that reps young adult fantasy at the time, and did get quite a bit of requests and did well with that, but no representation. So that was pretty rough. And I think at that time I had spent another 3 years or so on my second novel, writing, rewriting. I was really passionate about the idea. I thought it could be something that could sell, especially based on a lot of the books and series that were hot at the time. And I feel like I was at least in the ballpark, and I was getting there. But I, again, came to the same, kind of conclusion. You're going to have to write something else. And that one was pretty tough after the second novel, and another 3.5 years on this one. So I think at that point I was in my mid-20s, and I had developed a better network of people I had met through conferences and interacting online with other writers. And so I at least had a little bit more of a support system, which was great. Eventually I started working on, a log line or a hook line for a new third novel. And I was still really into young adult fantasy and sci-fi, but this one, it just happened to come into my head, and it was an adult military sci-fi. And again, my writing skills weren't where they needed to be at that point. They were definitely improved. Storytelling was improved, but nowhere near mastery or even closing in on that. But the idea was good, and I was able to get it in front of some pretty good players in the industry, and I got some serious interest from an editor at a major imprint. I think that third novel was really, really a major, I want to say, just elevation of everything. By the time the next 3.5 years were complete, from when I first came up with this idea, ran it by essentially my agent, or my unofficial agent in the industry, and he ran it by an editor. But the next 3.5 years were definitely the most I improved, and I think I made a pretty good leap. So I actually worked on the first part of this novel with the editor, but what ended up happening was I thought I had a book deal with a major publisher and an editor, and what happened was we didn't have a contract, and he eventually left the publisher for a different job, and his assistant, who was left to handle it, did not feel the same way he did. And then the other 4 editors that had wanted to take a look at it from the other major publishers, they passed as well. And that was probably the toughest time, because I really thought I was so close. Of course, getting that first agent is probably the biggest milestone for an aspiring author, but the sad reality is it doesn't always sell. And I was in that camp that it just didn't sell. We didn't get an official contract. It was sometime between the 3rd novel failing, as far as I considered failure at the time, to getting more into script writing, that I realized I had just fallen out of love with the process of writing. And I think it's definitely important for aspiring authors or screenwriters, anyone who's creating, to kind of keep in mind, because it's very rare that somebody gets into the industry super quickly, just a pure prodigy or something like that. But it usually takes quite a bit of time. And the thing young aspiring authors and screenwriters maybe don't understand, and that I definitely didn't, is there's different areas of writing. There's the business aspect and there's the creating aspect. And you can kind of lose yourself in the business aspect, the pitching aspect, trying to sell your work. I'm sure a lot of writers and creators are kind of like me. It's just like, look, I just want to create. I just want to write. I just want to, write the manuscript, write the script, and, have the agent take over and do the selling aspect. It's not always that simple. And you do need to, do some self-promotion. And I always, that was probably my worst attribute, really. And I just didn't feel comfortable with it. You can really get lost in that side of writing, and you can forget about why you even got into it in the first place. And I think I was getting a little bit lost into that. I was still trying to pitch, I was trying to sell, and it was just, writing became more work than it had ever been before, less enjoyable. And I think I did take like a little bit of a break, and really basically what I had to do was I had to fall back in love with the process of writing and creating. And I had lost that somewhere along the way. I lost it. And really the reason I lost it is because I think, like all of you, anyone watching this who's an aspiring author or a screenwriter or something, a creator, you want to do it full time. Like doing the 2 jobs, the day job, even if you like it, maybe it's enjoyable and there's good people and all that, but all your other time is going to be devoted to this pursuit, and it's going to drain you at some point. Like going through your entire 20s doing both of those, constant rejection, constant failing. You can really only go so long, experiencing that, putting everything you have into it while working full time, and getting the rejection, and then things fall apart before maybe you hit a wall, or it's just a period of, you're really struggling to even want to do it, which is the scary aspect, I think, for creators. We'll all put in the work. We'll get up early, we'll stay up late, we'll do whatever, right in lunch. But I think the scariest aspect is when you don't actually want to write. And experiencing that for the first time is pretty frightening, because you've known for so long that this is what you want to do, and you want to do it full time. And the thing is, you do have to sell it. You have to sell something. You have to get things out there. You have to generate some income, or how can you do it full time without having, some other means to support yourself? So that's the struggle that, every creator goes through. And it's about, continuing until you can achieve that. And the journey is tough. So once I really fell back in love with like the daily process, say you write 500 words, or you write 1,000, or even 100 or 200, and just enjoying what you did that day, and taking pride and enjoyment in that, what you did, what you created that day, the process. It's obviously a cliche, but it's a marathon. It's not a sprint when it comes to long form writing. And if you lose the love of creating every day and the enjoyment of that session, that single writing session, it's going to be difficult, and you're going to struggle. And so yeah, it took me a while to get back to that. I've still bounced back between, struggling with energy, motivation, and desire, and actually doing it. But really, I did understand that I needed to get back into it, that I needed to just enjoy the day-to-day writing, in that I needed to reset my expectations and my expectations for myself as well, into this pressure and anxiety I was creating for myself was definitely unhealthy. And you're just gonna be miserable. You're not even gonna enjoy what you're writing. You're not gonna enjoy when you're not writing. It's a pretty vicious cycle. I'm sure some of you can understand that. So really what I wanted to do with this channel is, I have a ton of content. I'll be honest, I'm not gonna share the first novel. That's staying in the desk drawer. But I have a lot of short stories now. I have 2 novels. What I want to do is share some of that content with you and create a little bit of imagery along with me reading the story. And I know I found a lot of channels that are telling stories, and I like listening to them. I really like campfire style storytelling, and that's what I wanted to do with this channel. I'm gonna share some of my content, stuff that I'm never gonna try to sell, or it doesn't matter. I want to do what I initially got into writing in the first place to do, which is give others the feeling that my favorite authors gave me, just to share this with other people. I write all different types of crazy stories, whether it's a short story or a novel, in many different genres, and so I'm going to share those with you on this channel. And depending on what people may want to see, I'd love to potentially help people with query letters, with the differences maybe between reaching out to a screenwriting manager versus a literary agent. I've learned a lot too between the differences. So yeah, I really just want to share my content and my stories with you all, and I hope you enjoy it. And if you don't worry about it. Criticism comes with the territory if you want to be a writer or creator. So that's definitely something I welcome as well. And I don't think the process is ever done of trying to develop as a writer and a storyteller and creator. So I'm always trying to get better. But I'm going to put out another video soon with a short story I did in the last year, actually. And I look forward to putting that out. But thanks, everybody. Until next time.